Tight to the table and tight to the fence. That's what we want for successful cuts on the table saw. Tight to the table, we want the work down solid on the top of the table saw so that it goes through the blade and doesn't come up. If it comes up, it doesn't get cut. That's obvious. And also, if it comes up, it can get on top of the blade shoots it back at you at 106 miles an hour maybe, hits you in the stomach. That's not fun. Tight to the fence, that's obvious as well. If the work comes away from the fence, then we have the improper size of cut. So we don't want either one of those to happen. So how do we go about accomplishing that? If we're talking about wide stub, that's not too difficult to accomplish. We simply want to keep a force this way on the edge of the board toward the fence. That keeps it tight to the fence. And then the board's going to pretty much lay there on the table, push it through like this, keep it down, and we make a successful cut. But what happens if we want to cut narrow stock like this? That's a completely different situation. When it comes to ripping narrow boards like this, that's where featherboards come into play. So here's a featherboard that's attached to the fence that's going to keep the work tight to the table. Now we need something to keep it tight to the fence. Now you could use a stick or something. I've seen people do this, hold this thing here. One of the problems is you're not sure exactly where the blade is and that type of thing. And besides that, it's occupying one of your hands in order to accomplish that. So my favorite featherboard for that type of work is this little guy. So this featherboard has got magnets on it, these magnetic switch things. Keeps it tight to the table, and I'll tell you what, these really hold. I mean, when you tighten these things down, it is very yeah, it's tough to push that. So they work quite well, and anywhere on the table, that sort of thing. So pushing this through here, I want this featherboard placed about right here. The blade's going to come up about right here for this board probably, so I'm going to place it maybe like right here. So what I do is push it in just a little bit, and push it in, lock it down, so you've got some force pushing that against there, and then away we go through the saw like this. And I'll be coming along, and then I'm going to grab my push shoe, nice smooth motion, away we go, push the work all the way through and onto the outfeed table. Now these feathers on this also help prevent this from coming back, because I can push them through, the little feathers start to deform as I'm doing this or moving that way, but then when I get into here, it's more difficult for this to come back flying at you. So that's what this little guy is all about, and I'm real comfortable with that. I've gotten used to it with both these feather boards. I don't have to worry. I know that's being held. The only thing I've got to do is push, and then I have to make sure I get the push shoe up there in one nice motion, push the thing through completely onto the outfeed table, right? Okay, and then I've made a successful cut on a thin piece. Now this feather board that's attached to the fence is really pretty cool. I saw this in a magazine years ago, and it works quite well. This one's made out of 1/2-inch Baltic birch, and I didn't think that would work very well. I wasn't sure about plywood. These are usually made out of solid material, but I didn't like the 3/4-inch wide one because it was keeping me too far away from the fence with the push shoe, so I went with a 1/2-inch. And the idea behind it is that this slot right here allows this end some flexibility and to move, and then this slot here allows this end some flexibility, and this guy can move up and down, so you can get some downward pressure on the work as it's going through. Now in actuality, I do not push down on this and put a lot of tension on the board. I simply place the board underneath here and then let this just set down on top of it like this. I can loosen it from this side over here. pick the thing up and just put the board and just let it down, and then tighten it back up, and we're good to go. And it's adjustable from way down close, you know, for thin stock, all the way up to about 1.5 inches or something like that. So that's the featherboard that keeps things down on the table, tight to the table. Quick look at the featherboard on the fence. This is the featherboard piece itself. Got carriage bolts that go through these slots. These slots allow for the adjustability up and down. This piece is secured to the fence with bolts that run in these slots, and a wing nut and one on the other end. So this is tight to the fence. This goes on down on the workpiece like this, and then these tightening knobs are attached and screwed onto the other side, tightening down the bolts, and presto, you're good to go. So do I use these featherboards all the time? Of course not. Wide pieces, long pieces, no. You don't need it on a wide piece. And if it's a long piece, if you're way back here and you're working with a sheet of plywood or, you know, something that's 6-8 feet long, you certainly don't want to use this fence, because a little bit of action back here, you know, is going to make this piece here come up, and it's easy enough to control and keep things down on the table when you're pushing a big heavy piece through. That's usually not a problem. Besides, I'm afraid if I have a big piece out here and there's too much force coming up on this featherboard, it could actually damage this, or it could really be bad if it torqued and bent this fence here. So I don't use it under those circumstances, because I don't need it. And obviously, if it's really wide, you're not going to use the magnetic featherboard out here either. So featherboards, that's the answer to how do we keep things tight to the table and tight to the fence.